All right, welcome. So we are moving along our process for creating a Quarto website. And so we're going to create the Quarto website using several .qmd Quarto files. So there are different forms of software that you can work with Quarto files. We're going to keep using RStudio or Posit Cloud, depending on your setup in order to edit and render those Quarto documents to different versions. There are different ways to work with Quarto documents. You can work with Quarto documents in other software, but Quarto documents are these nice documents where you can combine executable code in various programming languages, whether that's R or Python or Julia. We've been working in R this semester. You can weave together executable code and text and possibly some videos and other things into nice technical documents that you can export to different versions like PDF, HTML is what we have mainly been using, and Word docs. So we're going to be working with Quarto documents that we're going to render to HTML files that are then published online in GitHub. So hopefully we're all fairly familiar working with Quarto documents. Again, there are different types of software that we can use. We're going to use RStudio, which is developed by the company Posit. And there are two ways that you can work with RStudio, and that is locally on your computer by downloading that, or you can work remote or in the cloud using Posit Cloud. We've been working with Quarto documents, so I assume you've been familiar using one of these forms. It will be kind of nice when you're working with GitHub if you want to sync things locally on your computer. So if you haven't installed R and RStudio locally on your computer yet, you want to give it a try this time around, it might be nice to do so, but you don't have to. But there are two methods for working with these Quarto documents and creating this website. And one is going to be through RStudio, and the other is going to be using Posit Cloud. So I'm going to first go through the RStudio method in this video, and I'll make a separate video to talk about how you could create the files that you need to build the website if you're working in Posit Cloud. So I'm going to go ahead and open up RStudio on my computer to get us started. So I'm going to share my RStudio window. So now we're looking at RStudio that I've opened on my computer. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up to the File menu and then choose New Project. And now I'm going to choose to New Directory, and then I'm going to choose Quarto Website. And the directory name, now here's what's really important, is you want to name this whatever you called your GitHub repo. So if you were using, say, the convention where you were setting up a home page, then your repo would be username.github.io. If you're using the same repository name that I set up, it was demo site. So if you're setting up your main home page, again, you've already set up this repo in GitHub from the previous video, then you would use your username.github.io. I created a repo, a separate repo called demo site. So it's really important that I call my directory name here, whatever my repo was called in GitHub. Then I'm going to choose a directory where I'm going to store all of these files and work with all of these files. And you can choose anywhere on your computer. I have a directory where I have other GitHub projects over here. So I'm going to create a directory which is called demo site inside of a folder that is called OER on my computer. But you can choose any location that you want. But now what's going to happen is after I click OK on the next series of things, it's going to create a folder called demo site inside of this parent folder. So that's where demo site is going to go inside of here. For the engine, yes, let's go ahead and use the knitter engine. We are going to create a GitHub repo. So I want that checked because we've done this already in GitHub, and now I want to sync it with the files that I create on my local folder right now. I am not going to check this option over here. I am not going to check the use the visual markdown editor. What this last option is doing is this is when you open up the Quarto documents, do you want to work in visual mode or in source mode? So I prefer working in source mode, where you look at all of the text unrendered in its raw form and edit the raw text, which will be rendered nicely to formatted text in the HTML documents that we create. If you want to work in visual mode, if you like that better, then you would click this option over here. I'm going to open this project in a new session. So I'm going to check that box and then create project. And now the project has been created. You can see there are some files that were created over here. So now this project session has opened. The files that I'm looking at are inside of the OER folder in a folder called demo site. And it created a series of files over here. I'll explain what each of these files means in another video. I want to catch up the Posit Cloud people, but now you should see all of these files that have been created over here. We're looking at the file called index. There's also a underscore Quarto YAML file that we're going to be working with. So you want to make sure you have these files over here. And if you're up to this stage, then you'll be ready to get going with the next steps. If you're using Posit Cloud, you probably have not been paying attention to this video. We'll talk about that in the next video. So you might be able to skip the next video if you're only planning to use RStudio locally on your computer.